Chuck Norris and John Wayne are two of the most iconic action stars, not just of their respective genres, but also of cinematic history. Despite the fact the two occupied drastically different echelons of action films, there is a touching connection between them that started when Chuck was a lonely child struggling with being raised by an alcoholic father. Join Factsverse as Chuck Norris reveals an intimate relationship with John Wayne. One look at Chuck Norris's filmography will reveal that the action star is a man of many varied talents. In addition to being a renowned martial artist, he's also an actor, a screenwriter, and producer. The Hollywood legend got his start in the entertainment industry working as a personal trainer for celebrities, and was later inspired to become a celebrity himself at the behest of icon Steve McQueen. Chuck had been training celebrities for a period of several years before branching out into film acting. His feature film debut came in the 1968 Dean Martin spy comedy, The Wrecking Crew. Although Chuck was essentially a glorified extra in the film, it led him down the path to getting bigger roles down the line. Several years after Chuck's brief appearance in The Wrecking Crew, he was given a much meatier role in Bruce Lee's The Way of the Dragon. Released in 1972, the film was Bruce Lee's only complete directorial effort before his untimely death. The climax of the film featured a battle between Chuck and Bruce that was in the midst of a Roman Colosseum, and remains an incredibly iconic scene for fans of both stars. In 1979, Chuck took on the starring role in the action film The Power of One, which became the star's biggest success as an actor at that time. It led to an illustrious career as an action icon throughout the 80s, a period that defined the Chuck Norris we know and love today. Some of his most classic action performances in the 80s can be seen in the films Lone Wolf McQuade, Silent Rage, and An Eye for an Eye. In the 90s, Chuck took on the iconic titular role on the CBS Western Walker, Texas Ranger. Chuck had been an action star for over a decade before being cast in 1993's Walker, Texas Ranger. Given the show was a Western, it gave Chuck an opportunity to draw on the inspiration of one of his childhood heroes, John Wayne. Although Chuck and John didn't have a personal relationship, Chuck still felt an intimate connection to the icon when he was growing up. Given that Chuck never had a solid father figure in his life, he came to think of John Wayne's performances on the screen as the biggest positive masculine influence in his young life. Nowadays, Chuck seems to have essentially hung up his hat when it comes to acting, but he still makes sporadic cameo appearances on the small screen. In addition to appearing in several advertising campaigns, he also made an appearance on The Goldbergs, and later an appearance on the reboot of Hawaii Five-0. His last role in a feature film was in 2012, with many of his fellow action icons managing to talk him into appearing in the film The Expendables 2. In addition to Chuck, The Expendables 2 also included Sylvester Stallone, Dolph Lundgren, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bruce Willis, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Chuck's character was Booker, which paid homage to a character Chuck had played in the 1978 action film Good Guys Wear Black. The Expendables 2's Booker can also be heard going by the nickname The Lone Wolf, harkening back to Chuck's even more famous role in The Lone Wolf McQuade. Despite the fact Chuck has seen incredible success in his entertainment career, leading to him having a net worth of approximately $70 million, the star has shared that he had a very difficult time growing up. Besides having to deal with being the eldest of several siblings, Chuck also had to deal with abandonment issues and bullying from his alcoholic father, who eventually left him, his siblings, and his mother. His estranged relationship with his father is what led him to consider John Wayne as a father figure while watching him on the screen. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like, and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. And stick around for a lot more about Chuck Norris. Chuck was born in 1940 in Oklahoma. He was the eldest sibling of two brothers and grew up to be a relatively shy child, due in part to the age gap. During his school years, Chuck has shared he had a hard time excelling at any one subject. His parents divorced when he was still young, leading to Chuck's father abandoning the family. He was only 10 at the time, but his alcoholic father had inflicted plenty of damage on the young boy's psyche before leaving. After the divorce, Chuck's mother moved him and his siblings out to California. These years were initially incredibly difficult on Chuck, and one of the things that allowed the young boy to see the light at the end of the tunnel was watching old John Wayne features on the TV. Since John had never known a positive male role model, John Wayne's appearance on his TV set soon came to be Chuck's most prominent fatherly influence. Despite the fact the two couldn't be farther apart in reality, John served as an unlikely father figure to Chuck via his roles in classic Western and war films. As a young child, John's features instilled a moral compass in Chuck that overrode the damage and trauma that had been done by his alcoholic father. Because of this, Chuck was allowed to overcome and grow up to be the star he is. It was John Wayne's fatherly influence on the screen that encouraged Chuck to join the U.S. Air Force in 1958. While in the Air Force, he began to study martial arts and realized that karate was his true passion. He studied karate in South Korea while serving time in the country with the U.S. Air Force and began to get the idea that martial arts could provide him with a career once he was done with his tenure there. Although Chuck didn't initially have dreams of being a famous celebrity, he had come to believe that studying martial arts might get him into a position as a police officer once he returned to America. Later, Chuck got the idea that instead of becoming a police officer, he should open up his own karate school. He opened one up in California in 1962, and his business soon took off. Soon after starting up his own martial arts studio, Chuck developed quite the reputation with his Hollywood clientele. One of his most prominent clients was Steve McQueen's son. This allowed Chuck to meet McQueen, and it was Steve who encouraged Chuck to try his hand at becoming a star. Steve felt Chuck had both the talent and charisma to be an action star. While advising Chuck he had what it took to become an action star, Steve was also said to have given him some poignant advice that went on to play a big part in the roles Chuck chose during his career. Steve suggested to Chuck he was always going to be better off playing the strong and silent type, with his greatest attribute being his ability to communicate without words. This advice is what led Chuck to take on roles like Lone Wolf McQuade and leading to Chuck's signature status as an altruistic and omnipotent loner. Chuck Norris has arguably never received the critical acclaim he's deserved, but that hasn't stopped him from becoming a full-blown hero in the eyes of his ever-growing audience. With his authentic talent and charisma, Chuck has a screen presence unlike any other action star on the market. Because of this, Chuck continues to turn heads with the few media appearances he makes. At age 81, he's been married twice. His first marriage was to Diane Holchek. The two married in 1958 and divorced in 1989. They had 3 children. He went on to marry second wife, Gina O'Kelly. He's still married to Gina to this day, and they have a set of twins. Although Chuck Norris considered John Wayne a father figure, the two never managed to meet before John's death in 1979. But John did have several children of his own he was survived by. John Wayne was married 3 times over the course of his life and had 7 children. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite Chuck Norris role? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to FactsVerse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.